Hello, welcome back. Right, I'm sorry I've not been around for about over a month. It must be now. I've been knocked out by the sort of mother of all ear, nose, and throat infections. Only really just sort of coming out the other side, and as you can see, I'm still feeling a little hoarse. Misses, which kind of leads nicely into today's video, which is Quick Draw McGraw from Hi-Tec in 1990 for the Spectrum, Commodore 64, and Amstrad computers. It was $2.99. And it was based on a Hannah-Barbera cartoon from the 50s called Quick Draw McGraw, who was kind of like half horse, half sheriff, a problem solver out in the old Wild West. I don't know the cartoon at all. If you do, sort of shout up. Don't know the game at all. If you do, shout up with the particular memories of the particular version that you know of. It's a straightforward, simple left to right run and gun along an express train from the rear carriage all the way to the front engine, where you defeat the big boss at the end and then move on to the next train and so on and so forth. I would tell you what the plot was if I could find the instructions for it. Normally on World of Spectrum they have scans of cassette inlays, but don't seem to have one for this game, so just make up the plot as you go along basically. Now again, I'm really sorry not been around. Like I said, I really sort of any kind of infection that I get nowadays tends to sort of like really floor me. Ever since about 5 years ago, I had a big sort of massive bowel infection that landed me in hospital for quite some time and it did all sorts of damage to my insides. Ever since then, my immune system seems to be knackered. It's not coronavirus, don't worry. But it just takes me a little bit longer to get over these things than it would most people. But anyway, this is just a video to hang conversation off. I hope you like it. Let's get on with it. Spectrum version. Okay, here we are. We're going to start with the Spectrum version. As you can see, released in 1990 by Hi-Tec Software, based on the Hannah-Barbera cartoon. Again, please shout up if you have any memories of this. Now, what it is, it's a simple left-to-right run-and-gun game on an express train. You play the hero Quick Draw McGraw, and you have to get from the back of the train to the front, destroying all the baddies until you get to the engine, where you've then got to beat the end-of-level boss, and then you go on to the next train, and so on and so forth. Now, I can't tell you what the plot is at all of the game because, as I believe I said in the intro, I couldn't find any instructions. But anyway, it's QAOP and space for fire. So let's get into it. Okay, Spectrum version, here we go. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is the graphics are really quite nice on this, although idiosyncratically Spectrum, because of the sort of like single colours in use there. Good detail on the enemies and also the hero. But as you can see, like if you're against the background, then you can't really sort of see an awful lot. Now the everything's moving sort of like nicely. The controls are pretty responsive. The real big annoyance about this game is enemies touch you, they really drain your energy, and it's game over. You only get the one life. If you fall off the train, or if you have any other kind of disaster before you, then you go all the way back to the start. Now, those mountains in the background on the top there, you can see, oh, bloody hell, I forgot about them. You've got to be careful when you're on the top of the train. You can, of course, swap between the top and bottom of the train just by jumping. I tend to stay on the bottom because you do get those sort of trees and things that come along and sort of like fuck you up when you forget all about them. So I tend to sort of stay down the bottom because that's where all the power-ups tend to be anyway. And they don't appear, from what I've played of the Amstrad and Commodore 64 versions, you don't get those trees and other sort of things happening on the first train. You have to really, excuse me, my voice, my throat is killing me. Now, those mountains in the background, they don't move, as you can see, and I think that's a bit of a missed trick there, because if you've ever played a game called Aquaplane on the Spectrum, it's a really sort of great game. That's got sort of scrolling backgrounds, including mountains, and it's a really nice effect. I appreciate the ones in this game are bigger, than they are in aquaplane, but you know, could still be used to sort of like good effect if they'd just sort of like thought about that a little bit. But you know, this is not a bad game, but it does have its frustrations, such as the amount of energy you sort of lose if you get touched, and the sort of having to go all the way back to the start if you cock something up or you run out of energy. Now these dynamite sticks act like a smart bomb, and that's a really smart effect that sort of goes that you get there when you sort of activate one. Now for a £3 game, this isn't bad at all. You can see what I mean about staying on the bottom now, those things sort of like flying backwards and forwards up the top there. Now this apple will increase my life, re-energize me, so I want that, obviously. It's a good number of enemies on the screen at once. You can see we're sort of getting towards excuse me, the end of things now. Oh, just got to off this last lot and then the boss comes. Don't know what he's supposed to be. Ah, he's game over, man. Game over, man, game over. Let's just have one more go at that. Oh, I've knocked the camera. So yeah, not a bad game, but not without its frustrations either. You certainly wouldn't have sort of bemoaned wasting a few quid on this. I don't think. It's quite sort of cheerful. Oh dear. No sort of animation or movement on the wheels of the train either. But you know, that doesn't sort of break anything. That's just nitpicking really. It's quite a well put together little package. Very, very basic gameplay. But you know, there's nothing wrong with that per se. Oh, come on. Where's me apple? Oh, there we go. You have that, sunshine. See, a strategy is also to let the sort of screen scroll a bit so you can see what's headed your way, if you know what I mean. Ah, well, there we go. That's the Spectrum version of Quick Draw McGraw. So there we go. Let's move on. Okay, here we go. Commodore 64 version of Quick Draw McGraw, as you can see, released by Hi-Tec in 1990, based on the Hannah-Barbera cartoon that I know nothing about. Right, if you are a Commodore 64 owner and you're familiar with this game, shout up your memories of it, please. Right, let's go. Word of warning, I've been playing this for about an hour. Joystick only, this game, so ergo I am absolutely shit at this. This is not going to be much of a play through at all, which is a shame because it's actually quite a good game, having played the Spectrum version. But I've still got the Amstrad to go, so let's see how we get on with this. Right, well, the first thing is it looks really nice on the Commodore 64, and it sounds good. This game has frustrated me and sort of pleased me in sort of equal. You want to not get touched by anyone, because if they do touch you, you can see the energy bar goes down and you lose all your energy, you lose the game, and you're all the way back to the start. Now you don't want to fall down the gaps between the carriages either. That takes you right back to the start of the fucking train.
You can see what I mean about it being sort of like quite frustrating, because the gaps aren't that sort of easy to see on the Commodore 64 version. But, you know, oh dear, that was quick. Ah, and I've spelled my name wrong again. There we go, Bazza. Right, let's try and get a little bit further. Okay, well, the graphics on it are really nice and colourful, as you can see. And there's some lovely sort of character... Oh, I've pressed... pressed the wrong button on the C64. As you can see, they're very sort of colourful. There's a lot of character in the in the characters. Sounds really good, but there's, like I said, there's an awful lot of frustration about the game, and it could be. Ow! For God's sake! If it didn't take you all the way back to the start, the back of the train, you know, obviously I've got to get all the way to the front and then defeat the bad guy. But if it didn't, if it didn't keep on doing that, there'd be an awful lot more fun in the game. As it is, it's fairly frustrating, which, you know, is a shame. Now, this was a budget game, and 1990 is fairly late in the lives of all the sort of major sort of 8-bit, for God's sake, 8-bit computers. But there's a real sort of like high quality in the game. As you can see, it's just a bit frustrating because of the joystick control. Any sort of baddie touches you and your energy bar goes down, as you can see. You do not want to let them get anywhere near you. So the main character is really sort of like well drawn. Can't sort of see him, make him out too well against the back. Oh, for God's sake, against the backgrounds here. Now, how much of this is the game's fault and how much is mine is probably sort of 50-50. Joysticks are not my favourite, as I've said umpteen times before. You just want to make sure that I can get as far as possible on the Commodore 64 version without falling down the gaps. Now that apple, if I can get the bleeding thing, gives me extra energy. Oh, I seem to be doing okay now. See, when you do okay in the game, it's good fun. But like I say, there's just that frustration level about it. I know I'm going to fall off soon. And having done so, I will go all the way back to the start. Whoa! I forgot about the trees as well. Yeah, that's why I tend to stick to the sort of lower part of the train. Because of the things that... now I'm getting towards the engine. And there's the big boss. I couldn't quite beat him. Oh, there we go. Now let's have just one. Oh, I've done it again. Spelt it wrong again. And again. Right, let's just... Oh, excuse me, my throat is absolutely killing me. Right, let's try this once more. So yeah, when things go your way, it's a very decent game. But like I say, it's got an awful lot of frustration about it, like that. And punting you all the way back to the rear of the train. You know, I could imagine back in the day, I'd have got wound up with this pretty quickly, and not sort of given any sort of like extra sort of attention to it because of the wind-up potential. But you know, £3, it certainly does have a lot going for it. Like I said before, it looks really nice on the Commodore. It looks really nice on all the sort of versions, and I particularly like the sort of the pacing of it on the C64 version, if that makes sense. It can be sort of like quite fast and frantic. And at times like this, the game is actually fun. Ah, but at times like that, it bloody ain't. All the way back to the start. Or the end. Depending on your perspective, of course. Oh, I done it, arseholes. Arseholes, arseholes, arseholes. Now, I don't actually know what these power-ups do. Oh! Urgh. Ah! Falling off! God, if I had any hair, I'd be pulling it out. So like I said, the big one of the other sort of frustrations that it shares with the Spectrum version, and I'm presuming the Amstrad when I get to it, is the fact that the bashing into the enemies or being touched by one of the enemies takes so much energy. You can see I'm on a sort of hide into nothing now until if I can get to the apple. Oh, there's the apple. Oh, wow. That was lucky. I really do like the character of the way the graphics are all drawn. Really nice. I know Commodore, you know, we always take the piss out of blockiness and stuff like that, and yeah, they sort of are, but there's an awful lot of fun in souls in the in the graphics of this game on the C64. You can you know, a lot of attention to detail has been made in this game for this version. And it is, in essence, just a simple sort of run and gun game. Ah, souls, done it again. Oh, come on, let's try and get to the boss. Oh, well, there we go. That's quick draw McGraw for the Commodore 64. It rhymes. Right, let's have a look at it on the Amstrad. Okay, so here we are looking at the Amstrad version of this game. So we're on train 1. Now, you can see already it's very, very colourful, but the graphics are, although they've, like the Commodore version, they've got a lot of character. They're quite considerably blockier, and I think there's more detail in the Commodore 64 main character. But the carriage breaks, or the breaks between the carriages, are sort of easier to distinguish. It's still got the same frustrations in that, you know, the amount of energy that touching the enemies sort of takes from you is just ridiculous, as you could see there. But yeah, it's, like I said, it's very, very nice and colourful. But this particular first level seems to be way, way shorter than it is on the Spectrum and Commodore 64 versions. And, for God's sake, I'd like your sort of observations on that as well, if you think I'm just imagining it or something. I don't think so. But there we go. At least, like I said, the sort of breaks between the carriages are easier to define. I had real problems with that on the C64 version, as you could see. But yeah, so we're almost nearly at the sort of boss fight already for the Amstrad version of this. Here he comes. Now that's quite a nice graphic. Ah, he said. Right, let's try this again. Let's try and get all the sort of way up to it. The scrolling as well is quite sort of jerky, I find. It's not off-putting. The game is certainly slower than it is on the C64. You know, it's not always a bad thing. I keep on doing those mega jumps when I only mean to sort of like do a little jump. Let's try and get as far as we can on this. So we're almost like at the end. Now, this is like one of those lovely sort of colourful Amstrad games. But like I say, on this, the graphics are perhaps a bit too... not quite as well defined as the Commodore 64 version. Which is, you know, got some really nice sort of level of detail in amongst the characters. Ah, come on. Right, so I'm on level 2 on the Amstrad version. Right, okay. So let's see if we can get to the... Right, so we've got this sort of like shooting gallery game, which is really sort of like nice, if difficult. Ah, there we go. Right, so let's have one more sort of go, see if we can get a little bit further on the Amstrad version. So yeah, Amstrad fans, your opinions of this game, if you had it back in the day, are welcome. Oh dear. And again, so right, straight back to the start of the, to the back of the train. But like I say, I don't know why. Excuse me. Oh, I don't know why the Amstrad version, the levels are as short as they are. Right, okay. Let's have a look at, should we have one more go? Yeah, come on, let's have one more quick go. Oh, it's absolutely pissing down with rain outside now. Yeah, I don't know why the level is as short as it is on the Amstrad version. I say the big sort of thing it's got going for it over the Commodore version is you can see the gaps between the carriages and where to sort of like jump from a lot easier. No apples, it don't seem to be, for health regeneration. But not a bad game at all. You know, I made the point as well on the C64 version that for, you know, £3 you can't sort of... Here we go. Here's Mr. Big Bastard. Oh dear. Oh, never mind. Oh well, let's head to the outro.
Okay, so there we have it. 3 different versions of Quick Draw McGraw. A pocket money special from Hi-Tec in 1990. I didn't think that was a particularly bad game, but there were some frustrating parts to it. In particular, the amount of energy that's taken from you should you accidentally bash into an enemy. It really does become a bit of a pain in the arse after a while. And also having to go straight back to the start of the level, or the back of the level, if you know what I mean. Any kind of cock-up is made. A sort of checkpoint halfway through would have been, welcome, I think. Graphically, it's really, really nice on all the 3 versions. Obviously, the Spectrum version nice, crisp, detailed graphics when you could see them. If you were on the lower level of the train, which is where I spent most of my time, you could see that you know, there's same old problems from Spectrum games of characters being the same colour as the background. It's very difficult to make out. The Amstrad version was nice and blocky. Like I said, it jerked a bit, and the level was actually, that first level seemed to be significantly shorter than the Commodore 64 and Spectrum versions, which made it sort of slightly easier to play. But although the graphics were nice and colourful, they weren't as well defined as the Spectrum or Commodore 64 versions, I didn't think. The C64 I struggled with because of the joystick, as you could sort of tell. The big flaw on that one was not being, the breaks between the carriages not being particularly well defined, and it becoming quite easy to sort of fall down them, as you saw several times. But overall, not a bad game. If they'd ironed out those little sort of like moans and groans and frustrations, it could have been something really, really nice. It's not a bad game at all. Is it something I'm ever going to come back to? Probably not. But it's one of the more obscure games, and I'm quite interested to hear people's thoughts and memories of it. If you knew it on the Spectrum, Commodore and Amstrad, what you made of it back in the day, or from what you've seen of what I've just shown you, what you think of it, whether or not it's something you're likely to try it yourselves. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did like it, please let me know. If you wish to subscribe, please do so. But if you do subscribe, please, 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 as ever, take the time to join in with the conversation, because that's what it's all about. Thanks ever so much for watching. Take care. Goodbye.